Hi everyone, and welcome to another video from Shemmassian Academic Consulting. I'm Vikram Shaw, and in this video series we'll be answering some commonly asked questions about the MCAT. Today we'll be discussing how to best go through the MCAT in the most efficient way without sacrificing question accuracy. Whether you've taken MCAT practice exams before, or you're just starting out in your preparation, you might be concerned about the timing pressure of the MCAT. The MCAT's divided into 4 sections of roughly 90 minutes each. The 3 science sections have approximately 60 questions, whereas the cars section usually contains 9 passages. In recent years, the exam format has been slightly modified to accommodate testing during the COVID-19 pandemic. Regardless of the exam version you take, on average you should expect to spend about 1.5 minutes on each question in the science passages, and about 10 minutes on each of the cars passages. That's not a lot of time for each question. In the next few minutes, we'll review 5 tips and strategies that'll help you efficiently move through the MCAT without sacrificing question accuracy. Tip 1. Freestanding practice should be untimed, and full-length exams should always be timed. It seems counterintuitive, but practicing with questions under untimed conditions can be highly beneficial to improving timing on the real deal. Under untimed conditions, you could spend time thoroughly understanding the question, thinking about your response, and reviewing each item. Without the pressure of a ticking clock, you're free to take your time and make organic connections between the content and application of the material. Forming and rehearsing those connections during your practice will make the retrieval of this knowledge during timed exams much easier. Tip number 2. Know your weaknesses. When analyzing the results of your full-length exams, look for any patterns between the amount of time you spend on a question and whether or not you get the question right. People tend to find that on the questions they spend the most time on, they actually have the lowest question accuracy. For instance, you might notice that any cars question on which you spend more than 3 minutes is very unlikely to be answered correctly. Use this knowledge to your advantage when you take practice exams. Set time limits for yourself on certain questions so you can move on. A general rule of thumb is that if you're spending more than a minute on a question, it's probably time to choose an answer, flag it, and move on. If you have time at the end of the section, you can come back and look at it. It might feel unsatisfying or frustrating to move on from a question without answering it to your fullest ability, but by cutting your losses on time-consuming questions, you can actually improve your accuracy in other areas. Tip number 3, focus on the big picture. MCAT passages tend to be dense and full of details. It's impossible to absorb and memorize every piece of information in the passage in the 10 minutes, or less if it's a science passage, that's available to you. So focus on the big picture. Understanding the big picture will help you on all sections, but especially with cars timing. Don't get caught up in understanding every single passage detail. You'll find that reading passages for the MCAT is very different from reading for a college class. A history class might expect you to memorize dates and places, while a biology class will expect you to memorize names and pathways. Assigned readings might be dozens of pages long and be filled with a lot of fluffy, extraneous information. In contrast, MCAT passages are meant to be short and concise. When you read through the passages, keep in mind that it's impossible for the MCAT to test you on every single detail that's presented. And even if you're asked about a specific detail, the text of the passage will always be available for your use. Spending extra time to memorize details just isn't worth it. Tip number 4, categorize question types. In MCAT science sections, passage-based questions typically fall into 3 types. First, there are questions that require no knowledge of the passage at all. These are discrete type questions that typically require memorization of content. Second, there are questions that require 1 or 2 key phrases from the passage. For instance, you might need to read the passage to understand that an inhibitor, specifically a competitive inhibitor, is involved, or that the wavelength of light used falls in the visible spectrum. Third, there are questions that heavily rely on information from the passage. These questions tend to assess your knowledge of experimental design. When approached with a passage-based question during the science sections of the MCAT, try classifying the question into one of these 3 categories. Once you classify the question into a category, you'll have a better understanding of how much time to spend referring back to the passage, thus saving you some time in the process. And tip 5, review, review, review. I can't stress the importance of thorough review enough. This is hands down one of the most important methods by which you can improve your time efficiency and question accuracy on the MCAT. Many students try to do as many practice problems as they can without spending the time to both review and study the information from the questions they miss. And if you've seen some of our other videos, we emphasize perfect practice over just practice. Along the same line, we don't want you to just take as many practice problems as you can. Rather, you should take practice problems, review them, study what you missed, so that anytime you get a question about a certain topic again, you won't miss it. So let's first look at the science sections. When you come back to review your Chem Phys, Biochem, and Psych Search questions, you should also apply the TADE-P method in great detail. This method stands for title, axes, independent and dependent variables, and patterns. When you review figures that you didn't understand while taking the test under time conditions, come back and spend the time to understand every little detail about them under untimed circumstances during your passage review. Even if you didn't get a question on the figure, understanding every little detail about the figure now during your review will ensure that you have a skill set to answer questions about a similar figure if one were to show up on your actual exam. A good rule of thumb is that for a difficult science passage, it may take you 2 to 3 times as long to review the passage and write down the information you missed. This time can add up, so building flexibility and building the time to complete this review into your study schedule is very important. Now, the TADE-P method obviously doesn't work for cars. So what does work? A very high-yield way to review the cars section of the MCAT is to classify all of the wrong answer choices, even if you didn't choose them, during your review. You can think of this as an exercise or a worksheet, and you'll go through each question, and answer choice A falls into this wrong answer choice category. Even if you chose answer choice B, which is the correct one, you should do the exercise for answer choices A, C, and D. The wrong answer choice categories we recommend you use are opposite, unrelated, extreme, beyond the sphere, and misused passage information. However, if you create a list of categories for yourself that make sense to you, you should use those instead. Maintaining time efficiency and question accuracy under the stressful testing conditions of the MCAT is a tricky balancing act. Along with an adequate study schedule, using these tips and tricks can be greatly beneficial at any point in your preparation for test day. I hope you enjoyed this short video providing just a few tips and tricks you can use to try and improve both your time efficiency and question accuracy on the exam. If you liked this video and are interested in seeing more videos like this, go ahead and click the subscribe button and click the like button so you can see more videos like this in the future. In addition, in the description of this video, we'll have a link to sign up for our free MCAT question of the day so you can get all the practice you need to get in before your exam day. In addition, we have free content guides for every section of the MCAT, and these can be used to guide your content preparation for the exam. With that, I hope you enjoyed the video and happy studying.